Section 1.5, we're talking about proofs that are not valid. So a lot of times we'll have something and we'll prove it to be wrong. That's what it means, not valid. Okay, so there's things when we're doing a proof that can make something untrue. So we're going to look at the different ways here. So example 1 is talking about Haley Wickenheiser. And it says, athletes do not compete in both the Summer and Winter Olympics. Haley Wickenheiser has represented Canada 4 times at the Winter Olympics. Therefore, Haley Wickenheiser has not participated in the Summer Olympics. Tia read this statement and knew that there was an error. Identify the error in reasoning. Okay, so is there an error in this? Does anybody know who Haley Wickenheiser is? She's like the women's best hockey player, right, in the world. She played for the Winter Olympics, but she also is a phenomenal softball player, and she played for the women's softball team in the Summer Olympics too. Okay, so where this proof is invalid is right here in the start. Okay, it started with a false statement, which makes the whole proof false, because they said athletes do not compete in both the Summer and Winter Olympics, and that's a false statement because Haley Wickenheiser competed in both, and there's multiple other people that have competed in both. I think it says 18 other athletes have. Okay, so starting with something that's untrue creates a invalid proof. Okay. Let's go to the next example. Oh, here we go. Okay, there's our definition. An invalid proof, a proof that contains an error in reasoning in an invalid assumption. Okay, so this next proof says that Bev claims he can prove that 3 equals 4. Okay. So he goes through and he says A plus B equals C. And then he splits up A, B, and C, and he's using 4s and 3s because that's what the end result he wants to have. So he says that 4A subtract 3A plus 4B subtract 3B equals 4C subtract 3C. Okay, so all he did was take, this is a 1A, and instead he made it a 4A minus 3A, which is still 1A. It's just written in expanded form. Okay, and then what he did was he combined what he could here. So he has 4A plus 4B minus 4C equals 3A plus 3B minus 3C. So he put everything with the 4s on one side, and then he put everything with the 3s on the other side. Okay, so all he did was like add this to the other side, subtract this over, and add this to the other side. Okay, so that everything with the 3s is on one side, everything with the 4s is on the other. Then he took out the common factor of 4 out of each, so he divided everything by 4 and put it on the outside. And then on this side he divided everything by 3 and put it on the outside of the bracket. So now on the inside of the bracket he has A plus B minus C, and then what he essentially does is divides out on both sides by this, A plus B minus C, and you end up with 4 equals 3. So he proved that 4 does equal 3. Okay? But no. So where he went wrong in this is all okay, kind of how he expanded it. But right at this point here, he said originally A plus B is equal to C. So if you write it and you subtract C over and you write it as A plus B minus C, that would equal 0, because there's nothing else left on that side. So now what he did right here was he divided both sides by 0, which you cannot do in a proof. Okay? because he divided by a plus b minus c, and it's the same thing as 0. A plus b minus c is equal to 0, and you can't divide a proof by 0. Okay, it makes it invalid. So that's where he went wrong on that. Okay, let's cruise through to another example. So this one says Liz claims that she can prove that minus 5 is equal to 5. Okay, so she says minus 5 is equal to 5. And what she's doing to start with is she's assuming that to be true. So she's assuming minus 5 is equal to 5. So then she squares both sides, which gives you 25 is equal to 25. So then it says this means that the assumption minus 5 is equal to 5 because 25 is equal to 25. Okay, so where did she make a mistake? Anybody see where she made a mistake? Well, she's saying minus 5, right? Minus 5 squared is 25, and 5 squared is 25. So that's right. But you can't start with something that's a lie. You can't just say minus 5 is equal to 5 and then prove it. Okay? She's saying let's assume it is and then proving it. That's a lie. You can't start with an invalid statement. So don't start with something invalid and then prove that to be true because you started with a lie and then you just proved the lie was true. Okay? It's called circular reasoning, an argument that is incorrect because it makes use of the conclusion to be proved. Okay? Because you're saying, I want to prove this, so you're starting by saying that's true, and it's not. Okay? Let's look at example 4. So example 4, Jose is trying to prove that the following number trick. So he says choose any number, add 3, double it, add 4, divide by 2, take away the number you started with. Each time Jose tries the trick, she ends up with 5. Her proof, however, does not give that same result. Okay? So she does the number trick. She ends up with 5 every time. But when she did the proof, she did not find that out. So let's see what she did. So she picked a number. So she's doing deductive reasoning because she's using n for a number. If she wanted to use inductive reasoning, she'd pick a number and try it out. She's doing deductive reasoning because she chose the value of n as her number. Okay? So then it says you need to add 3 to your number. So she took n plus 3 because her number is n, and then she adds 3 to it. Then it says double it. So she times n by 2, she times 3 by 2, which is 6. Okay, then it says add 4 to that. So she added 4, which gives you 10. Then it says divide by 2. So you should be dividing both pieces by 2. So this is the part where she went wrong, because it should be 2n plus 10 divided by 2 gives you n plus 5. No, she did that, right? Oh yeah, so she divided by 2. And then it says take away the number you started with. So if you take away n, which you started with, you should be left with 5. Okay, so that works out. If you look at the summary on page 41 in your textbook, it says key idea, a single error in reasoning will break down the logical argument of deductive proof. So if you have one thing in it that does not make sense, then that breaks down the whole proof. That means that it's not going to work out, right? And so things you need to know when you're solving proofs. Division by 0 always creates an error in the proof. You cannot divide by 0 in a proof. Okay, it doesn't prove anything. Circular reasoning you have to avoid, so you can't start with a false statement and then prove it to be true. Don't start with a statement you're trying to prove. Okay. And then it says the reason you're writing a proof is so that others can read it and understand it. After you write a proof, have someone else see the proof and read it. And if the person gets confused, then you need to clarify. Okay, so when I took the class in university, every time I would write a proof out, my prof would send it back and said, don't understand it. So you have to make sure that when you're writing a proof, that somebody could follow it and say, oh yeah, that's valid. Okay, because if they can't understand what you're doing, then that means your proof isn't clear enough. Okay.